Settled. We should be starting our program in the next 10 minutes or so. Please take your seats as you allow others to come through. Good evening. Thank you. Are in the room. Thank you very much for arriving on time. If we could ask everyone out there at the back to kind of filter down towards the front, it will assist us to fill up these rows and almost get the room full enough and to absorb everything that's about to happen here. Thank you very much. You're welcome to all to come down towards the empty seats in front.
J'aimerais qu'on oublie le couleur pour qu'ils espèrent beaucoup de sentiments, de race.
What a beautiful evening to be gathered in this special way tonight. Thank you everyone for coming through and coming to the fore. I'd like to take this moment to welcome the noble spirit of Melia Lintate Desmond Tutu, for whom we have gathered here. To also welcome the chairperson of the board, the CEO, the executive and management of the Leah and Desmond Tutu Legacy Foundation, our esteemed panel of speakers and performers, the partners and sponsors of the foundation, ladies and gentlemen of the media, honorable guests, all welcome to this special night. My name is Brenda Sisani, I'm your program director. Welcome to the 14th Desmond Tutu International Peace Lecture 2024, whose theme is Bearing Witness. Throughout 2024, a year-long campaign recognizing both the 30th anniversary of South Africa's first democratic elections, as well as the 40th anniversary of Archbishop Tutu receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, has been taking shape and form within the community. Archbishop Tutu was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his role in unifying, leading as a figure in the nonviolent campaign to resolve the problem of apartheid in South Africa. The theme Bearing Witness not only points to all living persons, but to the notion that at every moment of our lives, every moment is an act of bearing witness. And today's program will demonstrate this with alacrity, with engaging conversations and stimulating artistry. I'm not alone in directing the program. Joining me are my co-presenters. They are language practitioners specializing in sign language, Ms. Fortune Madlala and Ms. Lizega Madolo. To set the tone, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce a South African singer and songwriter, an artist who represents the bridge between the present and future of African music, drawing from the roots of African storytelling, jazz composition, and the Motown soul, brilliantly creating a sound entirely her own in order to communicate an evolving African sound without losing its essence. This choice of words, as read from her biography, express her reverence for tradition while bravely casting a new light on the future imagined. Please welcome Ms. Zoe Mudiga.
Wabaniga Greetings, distinguished guests. Ngicelani ngizweka ngifuna ukushintsha umhlaba. Ngicelani ngizweka ngifuna ukushintsha umhlaba. Are there any world shakers here today? Sanibonani igama uZoyimodiga intokazi yasemgungundlovu umzukulu kaNomthandazo. Beautiful people, are you all? Such an honor to be here with you in celebration of such an incredible legacy and conversations, very important conversations that we here with my family love to be aligned with. We actually started off our set with a song called Umdali, which is loosely translated, our creator. And this song says that it recognizes that we have been created by something so big. And in essence, we come from such an incredible ancestry. And I think today speaks to exactly that. It says that we've been asked for, we've been chosen to be here. And I really do believe that. And I hope it's something that we carry even as we go into our conversations. And then there's Isekazini, which is loosely translated, it is within me. It is in my DNA to change and shake the world. And if you believe that, I want you to just say it to yourself on the count of 3. Isekazini. 1, 2, 3. And that involves all of you that are watching from where you're watching from. This next song that we're going to do is called Abantu. It is a song that reminds us that, again, we are a chosen people. I think that is a theme that we can find in a lot of this music that we are performing today. And I think it's something that helps for us to walk with. And if this legacy that we're here to be a part of is anything to go by, then it's a reminder well reminded of us. Iyadabukisa ayisifanele njengabantu abamnyama noma sikule simo thina akusho ukuthi kumele siphile kanjena kuzo jikizinto kuzo Zethembe kuyadabukisa akusifanele njengabantu abamnyama noma siwuthanda lo mkhuba thina akusho ukuthi kumele siphile kanjena kuzo jikizinto kuzo Jigizinto Snamakan Andabamnyama Asiko Andabamnyama Siketi Bona zochigizinto Okuphola lana kuyadabukisa akusifanele njengabantu abamnyama noma sinakhuba thina uthini akusho ukuthi kumele siphile kanjena kuzo jika izinto kuzo We send our prayers to all the places in the world, our fellow people who are going through so many social ills. We give love to you, Sudan. We give love to you, Congo. We give love to you, Haiti. We give love to you, Tigray, and many other places in the world. Because to believe that we are a chosen people is to recognize that in spaces that isn't seen and appreciated, that is the greatest loss of them all. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Zoe Modiga. This is Banda Banda on bass, Ire on the beat, Lungelo Ngobo. Uzoe Modiga lo, intokazi yasemgungundlovu.
How incredible was that? Oh, welcome my sister. It's her chance to co-direct this program. The spirit of collaboration on this stage is amazing. Earlier on, it was watching Miss Fortune reaching out to the musician and asking for the songs and the lyrics to be able to understand how to translate them. I remember yesterday when we were talking about her role about their role, the fact that they translate to music was just so mind-blowing. As well, you know, Zoe Modiga, the choice of lyrics again, speaking to consciousness consistently. These young musicians understand when they get the right message to say, what should we aspire for in life? And I think it's amazing, and it's very early in the day for me to say this, but for the foundation to have handpicked and selected this quality of speakers, of players, of musicians, it just says a lot about the work that the foundation does. And of course, to take us back there to the focus on the work of the Desmond and Leah Tutu Legacy Foundation, which continues to preserve and amplify the extraordinary legacies of the Arch and Mama Leah, ensuring that their values of justice, compassion, and peace inspire generations to come. It is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Nicholas Kielstrom Matseke, Chairperson of the Tutu Legacy Foundation, and Janet Jobson, the CEO of the foundation, to share more about their vision and work. A round of applause, please.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Tutu family, I want to especially thank everyone and welcome everyone who are also participating throughout the world, from the southern tip of South Africa to the northern kingdom of Sweden, to the Far East and all the way to the Far West. Welcome. And to you who are here, the 1,000 souls in this venue, in this marvelous city of Cape Town, I say Domelang, Rialibocha. This evening, as we gather in the luminous shadow of the arch, we stand united in his spirit, a spirit of love and of justice, unyielding courage. And Mama Leah Tutu is surely watching. She is watching us. And her warmth and wisdom is guiding our purpose tonight. I am Nicholas Kjellström Matseke, and honored to serve as the chairperson of the Desmond and Leah Tutu Legacy Foundation. I'm walking in the footsteps of my great uncle, S.K. Matseke, who shared his youth with a young, fiery Desmond Tutu in their townships of Krugersdorp and later on Soweto. And today we stand together to draw strength from the legacy of moral giants and activists and champions of human rights. Their light must guide us through a shadow of a very troubled world. We see despair in Sudan. We see struggle for justice in Zimbabwe. A fight for survival and for democracy in Ukraine. And I just came back from the front in that great country, and I'm bearing witness from there. Widespread anti-Semitism throughout the world, and tremendous suffering of the Palestinian people. And here we must pause. The slaughter of civilians by the Netanyahu regime has reached an unbearable scale. The killing and mutilation of children in Palestine is occurring at a pace more rapid than any conflict or war in modern history. And there are not just lives lost. No, there are generations stolen. A future extinguished in the relentless grip of violence. We commend those and those forces who are standing up against the ethnic cleansing, including Jewish people around the world. And we stand with them alongside against anti-Semitism, as we stand for the Palestinian people's freedom. So in this darkness, is there any light? Do you see it? Does it exist? How many of you have walked into a dark room and actually closed your eyes to see better. So bear with me when I'm asking you to close your eyes for a bit and try to see a short man with a wide nose and a giggling laughter and a purple dress. See the arch and hear his voice. If we are gathered here tonight, not to ask what justice can do for us, but to ask what we can do for justice, then where do we start? Where do we start? So I say to you that we must start at home. We must start in the office, at the school, in Parliament. We must start in the boardrooms, in the locker room. We must start at the dinner table with our friends and with our adversaries. Any stage. Can we use any stage? I say every stage. Every stage that allows us to speak truth to power. And consider this. During the darkest days of apartheid, Desmond Tutu's voice rang out with unwavering conviction. When many in South Africa's activist circles demanded no communication with the White House as complicit in oppression, the Arch stood firm in his beliefs that dialogue could pierce through walls of indifference. And thanks to the gravitas of his Nobel Peace Prize, he received an invitation to the Oval Office, and he took that. He took the opportunity and seized the moment, not as an act of submission, but as an act of moral defiance. He entered that space not for compromise, but to confront power with truth. That's what he brought to that stage. So what can we learn from this? Perhaps it is not so much about the grandeur of the stage we stand on, but the truth that we proclaim from it. And let that inspire us. And tonight we are also privileged to draw from the wisdom of our keynote speakers. We have the Nobel laureate Maria Ressa and Oleksandra Matvichuk. They remind us that the fight for justice is universal. Whether in the face of tyranny or corruption or war, the courage to speak truth to power transcends borders. And today, I use this stage to speak truth that cannot wait. I do it together with my sister and my fellow chairperson of the Tutu IP Trust, Mampela Rampele. And we have issued a united call. A united call for the release of all the hostages held by Hamas. We further demand that the world leaders halt the arming of the Netanyahu regime. And we called for a decisive weapons embargo now. And we affirm our unwavering support for the people of Palestine in their pursuit for freedom and dignity. And this is not merely a political stance. Nope. This is a moral imperative. It is a commitment inspired by Tutu's unshakable belief that no one is free until we all are free. So let us not despair, let us instead be ignited. Desmond Tutu showed us that a simple voice, one voice, joined by others, become a symphony of hope. And tonight we honor his legacy by pledging to keep that symphony alive. So please help me. Let us be the light that we seek, and let us speak the truth that must be told. Let us be help building the peace that this world so desperately needs. And I thank you for listening.
The Desmond and Leah Tutu Legacy Foundation is the legacy organization of one of the world's most iconic leaders and his lifelong partner, Archbishop Desmond Tutu and Mama Leah Tutu. Founded in 2011, the foundation strives to preserve the legacy of the Tutus while taking the example into the future. We do this by inspiring uncompromised bravery in children, youth, activists, changemakers, and thought leaders to building justice and peace around the world. We call this the courage to heal. Our goal is to nurture a generation of courageous leaders from all ages and walks of life to have an impact in the world by embodying the values and example left to us by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. We carry his legacy as a global signpost for the exceptional leadership and profound moral courage. To tackle the challenges of our time effectively, we need both technical development solutions and a new wave of action driven by courage, capacity, and compassion at a societal level. This latter work to reimagine the nature of our societies is the focus of the Tutu Legacy Foundation. We do this through 3 programs. Learning from Legacy. Through using the platform of the Truth to Power exhibition, we engage a wide range of audiences in learning about the story and impact of Archbishop Desmond and Mrs. Leah Tutu. We serve thousands of school learners to engage with the values of leadership, principles of democracy, and the healing work needed by our society. We engage young children with the imaginative stories inspired by Desmond Tutu's own children's books. We also teach them vital messages around bullying, tolerance, and the history of the country through our Desmond's World puppet show for children grades 4 to 8. We reach the broader public through programs to tell and share stories of hope and courage in South Africa and the world. Leading for Humanity. Our Leading for Humanity program builds a dynamic connection between the internal work we need to do as human beings and our contribution to reshaping our societies. We bring together diverse groups of leaders from across the globe to do the work of self-repair for societal repair, exploring the values of compassion, forgiveness, courage, and justice. The Leading for Humanity platform uses in-person and online tools to grow diverse circles of courage around the world. Advocacy for Societal Healing. Advocacy for Societal Healing is our program committed to justice, equality, healing, and our shared humanity. At the heart of our work is the mission to extend Archbishop Tutu's commitment to societal healing, so powerfully demonstrated through chairing the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Our work for societal healing calls on us to engage in reconciliation, through which we keep trying to find each other across divides. Reparation, through which we collectively take action against injustice and oppression. And reimagination, through which we reimagine who we can be together as a society through different intersectional lenses. By advocating for an inclusive, non-discriminatory world, we aim to strengthen democracy, confront violence, and deepen our shared humanity. Tutu reminded us that when we see each other as the enemy, we risk becoming what we hate. All of our humanity is dependent upon recognizing the humanity in others. Together, let's build a future grounded in equality and compassion.
Good evening, everybody. Oh, come on. Good evening. It is such a joy for me to see you all here in this space together. I feel like the Desmond Tutu International Peace Lecture each year is becoming a space of solidarity, a space of hope, and even a space of love in the face of growing violence and polarization around the world. As we come to the end of this year celebrating the 30th anniversary of our democracy, it's really important to look back at where we've come from in order to determine where we are going together. In our work, we often talk about reconciliation being the very hard work of keeping on trying to find each other. As you heard, we speak about repair, the importance of tackling injustice and fixing inequality head on. And we spend time collectively reimagining who we can be together. This work of reconciliation, repair, and reimagining requires us to get to know each other, to share our stories, to become more human to each other, to share our joys and our pain. Part of the inspiration for this evening's theme of bearing witness is a picture of the arch that sits in our Truth to Power exhibition. He's sitting on a hill, watching a community being forcibly removed, their homes destroyed. Despite all his activism and his extraordinary power, he could not stop this injustice. So he came and he sat. In the picture, he's bundled up in a huge coat against the cold. He came and he sat and he refused to allow the injustice to go unseen. So much of what Tutu did for us as a country was to tell the world of our pain. It was to mobilize people in solidarity against violence and the injustice of apartheid by sharing with them the stories of torment and dehumanization. It was this bearing witness that spurred on the boycotts, the divestments, the sanctions campaigns that was so important to pushing South Africa towards the end of apartheid. It was his powerful activism that 40 years ago led to him being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And I'm so thrilled that this evening we get to celebrate this milestone anniversary with two extraordinary Nobel Peace Prize laureates. Thank you so much, Maria and Alexandra, for being with us. And, well, yes, let's give them a round of applause. And after the end of apartheid, his role in bearing witness became even more profound as he chaired the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. To hold a space, day after day, for people to share their hardest moments, to come with all their wounds, to be held and to be witnessed. The generational pain, the violence, the aches of missing loved ones, the sting of relived torture. It was a profound act of witnessing our past in order to make the beginnings of a road into a shared future. I absolutely love poetry, and I was thinking earlier of Ingrid de Kock's poem about the commission. Let me share a few stanzas from that. The poem is called "The Archbishop Chairs the First Session." On the first day, after a few hours of testimony, the Archbishop wept. He put his grey head on the long table of papers and protocols, and he wept. The national and international cameramen filmed his weeping, his misted glasses, his sobbing shoulders, the call for a recess. It doesn't matter what you thought of the Archbishop before or after, of the settlement of the commission. There was a long table, a starched purple vestment, and after a few hours of testimony, the Archbishop, chair of the commission, laid his head down and wept. That's how it began. That is how it began, with a witnessing and a weeping. Our speakers this evening have made their careers and their lives about bearing witness to the horrors of our time and standing firm in the presence of injustice on the side of righteousness. Journalists are our eyes and ears. They are our truth tellers. They tell our stories. Human rights lawyers collect the evidence of crimes. They piece the truth together bit by bit, unpacking each step in the dehumanization of people. During the TRC, it was the journalists that conveyed to all of us as a nation the depth of pain that had been revealed. And it was the human rights lawyers that still today press for accountability and demonstrate the injustices of the past and the present. I mentioned at last year's peace lecture that I have a small cross-stitched picture in my office that says, "What would Tutu do?" It remains a constant companion for me in this work as we navigate taking his example, his courage, his profound moral clarity, and his righteous indignation into the future. In her poem, Praise Song for a Fearless Conscience, Antjie Krog describes what she feels the Arch did and wanted from us. She says, "Single-handedly, he coined a language of usness in a deeply divided country. He wanted us to be enraged by injustice. He wanted us to assent to a modality of caring. He wanted us to live in solidarity with distribution. He wanted to bind us together in embracing clusters. He wanted to build shelters with us. He wanted to raise great and mighty roofs with us. He wanted to recreate in us frameworks of humanity." The work done by our speakers this evening is precisely this work of recreating frameworks of humanity between people across the world. I'm so deeply honored that tonight we can share with you the conversations and thoughts of these great witnesses, journalists, activists, human rights lawyers, human beings. Maria Ressa, Alexandra Matvichuk, Yusra Elbajir, it is an honor to host you here, and thank you so much for your immense contribution to all of us around the world. I so look forward to tonight's discussions. Just before we move on, we'll play a short video in tribute of Nelson Mandela, look at that, of Desmond Tutu's 40th anniversary of his Nobel Peace Prize. Thank you, everyone.
My relationship to Archbishop Tutu goes back to the 70s. He lived in our neighborhood in Orlando West. I did not know him, but we had heard of him that the Bishop of Johannesburg is now living in our neighborhood. And then later I got to know him closer when he joined us as the General Secretary. This was in 1978 until 1984. He was our boss, the General Secretary of the SACC.
I've been photographing for more than 40 years now. The time of Khotso House and the Interchurch Media Project, the South African Council of Churches had, in fact, taken on the task of itself incubating resistance movements. And we were in the heart of it. We were located there.
When I was offered the chance to be the religion correspondent of my newspapers, I grabbed the opportunity. At that stage, the Arch was the Dean of Johannesburg. Very soon afterwards, he became a bishop. He was one of a number of rising black leaders in the churches, and that was what drew me in.
I remember Bishop Tutu and his wife Leah just being regal and composed and so statesmanlike. That's what I felt needed to be conveyed to the world. We had leadership of this caliber. When Bishop Tutu received the Nobel Prize, we were of course very aware of it and had a lot of time to think about what this meant.
This was at the time when things were so bad politically. It gave everybody such a joy.
For Desmond Tutu, the Peace Prize did not change the content of what he was saying. His public pronouncements, his public advocacy was firmly entrenched, which began around the time of the Soweto uprising. He was a unifying figure in the fight against apartheid.
He spoke truth to power and never shied away from doing that, agitating on the wrong through vigorous protest by non-violent means on behalf of the vulnerable, marginalized, and oppressed members of our society.
His message was deeply rooted in his faith. For him, every person is made in the image of God.
Archbishop Tutu's stance was one of a peaceful nature. When we work together against evil, we can overcome whatever challenges that we face.
Because of his stature or the recognition of his work for peace, he got access to people to whom he could argue the case for sanctions. When he went onto the streets to intervene between police with their fingers on the triggers and young people with bricks and stones and petrol bombs trying to stop them from clashing, that heightened the publicity. When he began to speak out on other issues, he was listened to. His voice was amplified far more widely internationally. He had this major influence compared to other religious leaders.
Each generation has injustice to fight against. It's a continuous struggle that we have to keep at, basing it on the faith that we have in God. That whatever we do, with God on our side, nothing is impossible.
It truly is a privilege to be here with the family, with the foundation, and very arresting to be reminded of the work. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Chairperson. It is said that when we are born, the first sign of life is that gasp for air, and that wail, and that big cry. And that towards the end, the last thing to go is the hearing. Because words and sound is how we are made up. Words, when used well, can change the path of history. Our next presenter is known to have written such poignant words that resulted in the returns of the remains of Sarah Baartman. We are honored to have with us the renowned writer and poet, Madam Dinah Ferris, who has written a special poem for the Arch. Celebrating his immense contributions to peace and humanity. Please welcome Ms. Dinah Ferris.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. They had to bring something for me to lift me. I want to thank the foundation's management and staff for this opportunity, and also the Tutu family. For Desmond Mpilo Tutu. Desmond Mpilo Tutu, Archbishop, Vice Chancellor, Nobel Peace Laureate, father, brother, South African, African. You with the many names have spoken in many voices. No future without forgiveness. I am human because you are human. Will they hear? Will white people hear? All we are asking you to do is to recognize that we are humans too. Desmond Mpilo Tutu, you have walked many miles, but through thorn-laced roads, you singled out the roses. And when harrowing revelations of apartheid made you weep, and threaten to deepen pain. You appeal to your people's conscience. Let us open the wounds, you said. Let us open the wounds and cleanse them. Words we never uttered were woven in our vocabulary. We married truth and reconciliation. We prefixed justice with restorative and remembered the meaning of retributive. You search for the truth, but the emphasis always were on reconciliation. You have been ridiculed, blasphemed, dead monkeys cowardly placed on your doorstep. And when the audience was angry, you made them laugh. Try to show the lighter side. You knew we had to have that, otherwise we would have folded into defeat, playing right into the hands that were waiting to shut us up or put us behind bars. But you carried your story still, amidst controversy. Never could they scandalize you, portray you as something not of the people, never even as somebody not of God. You walked with the Bible and you talked with justice. Let no one say the coat you wore to the march was too thick, that during our winter you ate fresh baked bread and soup. You pulled your curtains close when the sun set, and that you never responded to the cries of babies next to their dead mothers' bodies. Let no one, especially the foolish at heart, think they can be your witness bearer. Too many winters and scorching summers lay into the soles of your feet. One shrunk the size of your lungs, yet you marched. On those squares, inch by inch, you marched, round and round and round, up the slopes and down. Let no one measure themselves against you. Ask them how old they are, the year they were born, and that will be enough. So let the witness bearers sing. Let the bells in witness ring. And let the amateurs chant and vocalize. They will need years to rise to get to your size. There will be witness bearers for every generation. Generations who should remember that in each declaration, a witness bearer stands prepared to record all that has been done and said. Desmond and Tutu, you became the story. We told you to the past. We hold you to the future. There is no end to the present. May we always be your true witness bearers. Thank you.
What shall we do? What shall we do?
It is a powerful moment, as said by Madame Diana Ferris, to actually introduce this moment, which is the keynote address. It is my privilege to introduce Maria Ressa, Nobel Peace Prize laureate for 2021, who will speak on the profound importance of bearing witness in our complex world. She's joined by Alexandra Machivkyuk, whose work in human rights advocacy is a beacon of courage and perseverance. From investigative journalism to winning this Nobel Peace Prize, Maria Ressa has spent her life safeguarding freedom of expression. As CEO of the Repla and inspiration behind the powerful documentary, 1,000 Cuts. Tonight, she inspires us to reflect on the role of truth in building lasting peace. Please welcome Maria Ressa.
I'll take advantage of this also. Sorry to be shorter. My gosh, first of all, what an incredible honor and a wonderful education for someone from the Philippines. I'm going to pull a thread that we've now seen since the night began, and it's something that actually mattered to me a lot when I was trying to figure out how do I take apart the world. And it's a phrase, the present moment of the past. Right? The present moment of the past. This is where we are today, and what we do today will be colored by what we went through, what we felt. Were we joyful? Were we afraid? Did we remember losing something? And that step that we take today, that will create our future. It's really fitting and such an honor to be with you today. Janet, thank you for taking us through the exhibition and the life of the Arch. This present moment of the past for South Africa, it's a continuum. And I think what gives us agency throughout the world, these are our values. And regardless of country, culture, or language, the values of democracy are actually very clear. So let me tell you a story of the present moment of the past. I'm always so dire, so I tried to choose something that won't depress you. So when I was 10 years old, my family left the Philippines shortly after martial law was declared by Ferdinand Marcos. I remember walking into my public school in Toms River, New Jersey. I was 4'2", a foot shorter than now, which meant I was the shortest and the only brown kid in my 3rd grade class. I marveled at this very loud and easy confidence of my American classmates, and I was shocked by how rude they were to our teacher. My teacher, Miss Ugland, I still remember her name, had long blonde hair and these piercing blue eyes. I'd never seen that before. Within 2 weeks in her class, she tried to shift me, and I was just getting used to being in this loud, huge classroom, and she asked me to move a grade to grade 4. I resisted. So she sat me down, asked my parents to come in, and she gave me one of the lessons I still remember today. Move to the next grade, Maria, she said, because you have nothing more to learn in my class, and you need to move on. You need to learn. So I did, and she became a vague memory. Fast forward, almost 50 years later, 50, when we met again at a cafe in Oslo, Norway. Miss Ugland walked in with her daughter and her granddaughter, but still it was like a time warp. Her father was Norwegian, and I recognized her, but her blue eyes, her blonde hair was now much shorter. She hugged me and we sat down. She reminded me that my 3rd grade class, my school, once talked about this short brown girl who didn't speak for nearly a year. She was so proud of the Nobel Prize I had just received, and I was, again, transformed into that lost, silent immigrant kid. I found my voice. That's partly what led me to journalism, but learning to speak truth to power is a lifetime of lessons for me. I always wanted to belong. We all want to belong, but I'm not sure if I ever really did. I feel most Filipino when I'm with Americans, and when I'm with Americans, I feel most Filipino. So I just learned, put the best of these worlds together, be the best version of me that I can be. And what guided me through tough decisions in my life is actually really simple. And when I was going through the exhibition today, I thought, wow, it sounds I empathized with it. It's simple, the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That helped me find what allowed me to survive some of the darkest years. And again, the Arch's life reverberated for me 3 lessons: radical compassion, moral clarity, and relentless hope. Going through the life of the Arch had me comparing what our nations, the Philippines and South Africa, have lived through. You remember the People Power Revolt of 1986. I saw some banners in your protests in 1989, the same colors, and I was asking Janet, what did these stand for? Because the Arch stood unwaveringly at the intersection of faith, morality, and action. He taught us that peace is not the absence of conflict, it's the presence of justice and forgiveness. So we gather here on the 30th anniversary of South African democracy, the 40th anniversary of his Nobel, not only to honor his legacy, but to reflect on our shared responsibility to uphold truth and justice in an age where lies travel faster than facts, and where technology, once seen as a great equalizer, is now a weapon wielded against the very foundations of democracy. He said, and at the worst of times for me, like I couldn't sleep, I didn't know what was going to happen the next day. At that worst of times, I tweeted one of his quotes. It was this one: "If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor." These words are more than a call to action. They provide a moral compass in a world that is increasingly defined by disinformation, polarization, and rising authoritarianism. Today, neutrality is not an option. Silence is consent. Every one of us, the cellular level of every democracy around the world, each of us must decide. Do we defend truth, or do we help its destruction? Do we amplify voices calling for peace and justice? Or do we remain silent? Do we duck as chaos grows? Tonight, I want to speak about courage in a world increasingly shaped by lies. The courage to speak when silence is safer. Courage to build bridges when walls seem easier. And courage to stand for truth even when it feels like the entire world is against you. We live in a time of extraordinary paradox. Technology has brought us closer together, but it has also driven us further apart. It democratized access to information, but it also weaponized disinformation. The very tools that should empower us to speak truth to power are now used to silence us, to manipulate narratives, and to pound open the fracture lines of society. This is not accidental. It is by design. And I've said these 3 words over and over since 2016. Without truth, you can't, let me go back. My gosh, how can I get this wrong, right? It's facts. Without facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these 3, we don't have a shared reality. We can't begin to solve any problems, let alone that existential problem of climate change. We cannot have democracy. We live in a world where big tech's algorithms prioritize profit over people, where outrage is monetized, and where lies can spark wars or kill people. The pursuit of truth is a peace-building mission, because without truth, there can be no accountability, and without accountability, there can be no justice. Rappler and I know what it's like to be the target of exponential lies and hate. When freedom of speech is used to exponentially pound freedom of speech to silence, an average of 90 hate messages per hour that attack me every hour, targeting me, designed to silence my voice. The meta-narrative seeded on social media in 2016 was journalist equals criminal, paving the way for my arrest 2 years later. Be careful of this, it's like fertilizer, right? I was arrested 2 years later. Then there was the threat of shutdown of Rappler, violence in 2018. A year later, 10 arrest warrants came at me. I began to workflow getting arrested, and just to do my job, I had to be okay with going to jail for the rest of my life. But I'm still lucky. Every day, we chose to fight. Not because we in Rappler were fearless, but because we knew that fear shouldn't paralyze us. My 3 co-founders were 4 women who started Rappler. We had a rule: only one of us can be afraid at a time. So we passed the fear. We passed the fear and we just kept going. And I'm happy to say that in 8 years, we've now won all but 2 criminal cases, which still means I have to ask wait, not yet. It still means I have to ask the Philippine Supreme Court for approval to travel to be here with you today, but that's 2 left. 2 left, right? I joke that my country has moved from hell to purgatory. Let me end with this. You are already experiencing parts of what we've gone through in the Philippines here in South Africa. But I'm very sad to say and to warn you that it may get worse. Today, social media penetration rate in South Africa is about 43%. 43%. In the Philippines, 100% of Filipinos on the internet are on social media. Facebook was our internet, right? But as your 43% increases, disinformation and information warfare, information operations, the breakdown of truth and trust will get worse. So how can you prepare for this? Well, when we announced the World Movement for Democracy in Johannesburg early this year, Dr. Mampela Rampele reminded me about Ubuntu. I loved that word. I am because we are. It's an antidote to so many of the world's problems today. When big tech rewards the worst of who we are, Ubuntu teaches us that our fates are connected, that the fight for truth, justice, and peace is not someone else's battle, it is ours. Right? So, what can you do? I have 4 suggestions. 1, collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. Build trust now to close the fracture lines of society that information operations will try to pound open, pitting you against each other. 2, hold power to account. Demand transparency and accountability from those who control our public information ecosystems, from governments to media to big tech. You already know about state capture, how you can be manipulated. Now you add media capture, academic capture, NGO capture. It is about power and money. And I'd suggest here, the former EU MP, Member of Parliament, Marichka Shaki, just released a book in September. She puts this all together. It's called The Tech Coup. 3, protect the most vulnerable. Support journalists, human rights defenders, activists who risk their lives. Because if you are marginalized in the real world, you are further marginalized online. If you are a woman, LGBTQ+, if you are a minority, you are further marginalized online. On your journalists, in the Philippines, after my first arrest, the largest newspaper came out with an editorial, and it was the first time, one of the first times, because, you know, when you stand up, there's this saying in Japan and Indonesia, the nail that stands up gets the hammer. You don't really want to be the first, but if you have no choice, you deal with it, right? So here's what they did is they did an editorial. Remember the Martin Niemöller quote from Nazi Germany, right? Our Philippine version was this. After I was arrested the next day, here's the quote. First, they came for the journalists. We don't know what happened next. The fourth, and this is you, this is all you. Please, please, and I know South Africans, like Filipinos who did people power, I know you know this. Recognize your power. Building peace is not reserved for heroes. I heard Janet say this also today. It's the collective work of people who refuse to accept lies. I've heard Alexandra say this. We've been in different parts of the world. She says, you know, there are many moments when I just go, oh my God, where can we get hope? Alexandra will always tell me she gets hope from her people, from ordinary people. Rappler would not have survived the 6 years of Duterte without the help of our community. Ordinary people who were afraid to stand up and be the first to get hammered, but they were there behind us. They helped us to survive, and they always remind me of the goodness of human nature. You may not see it online, but remember, online, it pushes the worst of who we are, but in the real world, the goodness of humanity is there. So you are powerful. And as the Arch said, we can be part of this tidal wave of change for the good. More than 4 years ago, I said that 2024 may be the year that democracy dies. I really want to be wrong. Please, please prove me wrong. But when you turn the news on today, yes, I still watch TV, you know, it begins to feel like we're already in World War III. The threat of nuclear war overshadowing these ongoing wars, Ukraine, Gaza, Sudan, the ongoing battles in Venezuela, Myanmar, Zimbabwe, Mozambique. You heard this all through the night. We cannot address these without looking at ourselves, but we cannot address disinformation without addressing the inequality that makes it so seductive. We cannot end online harassment without confronting the misogyny, racism, and the prejudice that fuel it. Peace cannot exist in the absence of dignity, equity, and inclusion. So, yeah, please. This is it. This is it. The present moment of the past. This time matters, right? It is the present moment of the past that will determine our future. So I throw this back to you, powerful South Africans, the powerful people who believe in the values of democracy. How will you act with the past of the Arch, with the past of Nelson Mandela, my gosh, your Nobel laureates who lived on one street? How will you act to shape the future and make their legacies worth everything they've sacrificed for? This is up to us, and this is it. Thank you.
As Maria speaks, I ask myself, it's important to reflect on the moment. It's not long ago that we did not realize what we were living within, which was a crisis of humanitarian abuse of proportions, of huge proportions, that we were not aware that we're living through it. And when she questions the era of what we're living through right now, whether we are aware of what is happening around us. And I love it when she said, without truth, there is no nobility. And without nobility, there can be no justice. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. We'll shortly, after I introduce our next speaker, also go to the next part of it, which will be a fireside chat. I had Maria speak also about social media, so I look forward to hearing more of that. Without further ado, Alexandra Matvichuk is a lawyer, a leader, and a Nobel Peace Prize laureate whose work for justice in Ukraine resonates far beyond borders. Her organization, the Center for Civil Liberties, champions human rights and youth education. And tonight, she shares her vision of bearing witness and seeking justice. Let's welcome Alexandra Matvichuk.
It's a huge honor for me to be here and to have an opportunity to address to this distinguished audience. But before I will start my speech, I want to tell you that today people in Ukraine commemorate the 85th anniversary of victims of Holodomor, or death by hunger. The man-made famine which was imposed against Ukraine and its people by Communist Party, which resulted in deliberate death of starvation of millions and millions Ukrainian men, women, and children. Please share with me this moment of silence to commemorate these innocent lives. Thank you. I am a human rights lawyer, and I have been applying the law to defend people and human dignity for many years. I have often heard that freedom and human rights are important, but economic benefits, geopolitical interests, or security concerns are even more significant. The fault of this approach is that freedom, and peace are inextricably linked. And states that grossly violate human rights pose a threat not just to their own citizens, but to the peace and security in general. The clear example is Russia, which destroys its own civil society step by step. But for the long time, the world turned a blind eye to this. Unpunished evil grows. Russian troops committed crimes in Chechnya, in Moldova, in Georgia, in Mali, in Libya, in Syria, in other countries of the world. They have never been punished. They start to believe they can do whatever they want. And now, as a human rights lawyer, I found myself in a situation when the law doesn't work. Russian troops are destroying residential buildings, schools, churches, museums, and hospitals. They're attacking evacuation corridors. They're torturing people in filtration camps. They forcibly taking Ukrainian children to Russia. They ban Ukrainian language and culture. They are abducting, robbing, raping, and killing civilians in the occupied territories. And the entire UN system of peace and security can't stop this. Let me share with you the story of 10-year-old boy Ilya Matviyenko from Mariupol. When Russian troops tried to siege the city, they didn't allow the International Committee of Red Cross to open the green corridors and to evacuate civilians. Hence, Ilya and his mother, like other people in Mariupol, have to hide in the basement of their residential buildings from Russian shelling. They melted snow to have water, and they made fires to cook at least some food. But when supplies ran out, they were forced to go out, and suddenly they appeared in the center of Russian shelling. Ilya's mother was injured in her head, and the boy's legs was torn. With the last strength, his mother took her son to the front apartment. It was no medical assistance, because prior to this, Russians deliberately destroyed the maternity hospital and entire medical infrastructure in Mariupol. So in this front apartment, they just lie down on a couch and hugged each other. They were lying like this for several hours. And this 10-year-old boy, Ilya, told to my colleague that his mother died and got frozen right in his arms. I have a question. How we people who live in 21st century will defend human beings, their lives, their freedom, and their human dignity? Can we rely on the law, or does just brutal force matter? The answer to this question is important not just for people in Ukraine, Iran, Syria, Nicaragua, or Sudan. The answer to this question will define our common future. First, there is no peace without justice. War turned peoples into the numbers, because the scale of our crimes grows so fast that it becomes impossible to recognize all the stories. And that is why it's important to tell them. Let me share with you the story of 62-year-old civilian Alexander Shelipov. He was killed by a Russian soldier near his house. This tragedy received a huge media coverage only because it was a first court trial after the large-scale war. His wife, Katerina, on the court, told to the judges that her husband was an ordinary farmer, but he was her whole universe. and now she lost everything. People are not numbers. We must ensure justice for all victims, regardless who they are, their social position, the types of crime they endured, and whether or not media or international organizations are interested in their case. We must return people their names, because life of each person matters. Second, occupation is just another form of the war. I work with people who went through hell, so let me assure you that people in Ukraine dream about peace. But peace doesn't come when country which was invaded stop fighting. That's not peace. That's occupation. And occupation is the same war, but just in another form. Occupation is not just about changing one state flag to another. Occupation means enforced disappearances, torture, rapes, denial of your identity, forcible adoption of your own children, filtration camps, and mass graves. This is a story of children's writer Volodymyr Vakulenko. He wrote a beautiful story for Ukrainian children. An entire generation of Ukrainian children brought up on his daddy's book. During Russian occupation, he disappeared. His family hoped to the last that he's alive, but like thousands of other Ukrainian civilians are in Russian captivity. But when Ukrainian army liberated his region, we found mass graves in the forest. And in unmarked grave with the number 319, we found the body of Volodymyr Vakulenko. I know his family. It's very difficult for them to accept the result of identification. There is no legitimate reason in doing such things. There is also no military necessity in it. Russian troops did this horrible thing only because they could. Third, we need to reform the international system of peace and security. I don't know how historians in future will call this historical period, but the world order, which is based on UN Charter and international law, is collapsing before our eyes. The UN system, created after the Second World War, established unjustified indulgences for individual countries. And now it leads to a situation when the work of Security Council is paralyzed. It's very easy to predict that in such situation, fires like wars will emerge more and more often in different parts of the globe because the international wiring is faulty and sparks are everywhere. I know that people in South Africa think that this war started in February 2022. But let me tell you that this war started in February 2014, 10 years ago. This was just after the Revolution of Dignity, when millions of people in Ukraine had bravely stood up against corrupt authoritarian regime. They took to the streets across the country. They peacefully demonstrated just for a chance to build the country where rights of everyone are protected. Government is accountable, judiciary is independent, and police do not beat students who are peacefully demonstrating. And when the authoritarian regime fell, Ukraine got its chance for democratic transition. And in order to stop us on this way, Russia invaded. Russia occupied Crimea and part of eastern region in 2014, and then in 2022, expanded this war to the large-scale invasion. Because Putin, as every dictator in the world, afraid of the ideas of freedom which came closer to Russian borders. And that is why this is not just a war between two states. This is a war between two systems, authoritarianism and democracy. And with this war, Putin attempts to convince the entire world that democracy, freedom, human rights are fake values because they couldn't protect anyone during the war. He attempts to convince that country with a strong military potential and nuclear weapon can break the world order, can dictate its rules to entire international community, and even forcibly changed internationally recognized borders. And if Putin succeeds, it will encourage other authoritarian leaders in different parts of the globe to do the same. Governments will be forced to invest money not in education, healthcare, culture, or business development, not in solving global problems like climate change or social inequality, but in weapons. We'll witness an increasing number of nuclear states, the emergence of robotic armies, the using AI as the methods of war, and new weapons of mass destruction. If this scenario comes true, we will find ourselves in a world which will be dangerous for everyone, without any exception. Fourth, we are losing freedom in the world. Half of the population in the world this year goes to election. But don't be in illusion. More than 80% of people around the globe live in non-free or partially free societies. This means that people who have the right to vote for whom they want to vote, who have the right to say what they want to say, who have the right to love whoever their hearts tell them to love, and who have the right to choose freely to whom God they want to pray, are the minority, just 20%. The problem is not only in that fact that in authoritarian countries, the space for freedom is shrinking to the size of the prison cell. The problem is that even in developed democracies, people starting to call into question the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And there are reasons for this. The current generations inherited democracy from their parents. They have never fought for it. They began to take human rights for granted. They have become consumers of democracy. They perceive freedom as a possibility to make a choice between different cheeses in supermarket. But truth is that freedom is very fragile. We can't attain our human rights once and forever. We make our choice every day. And 5, people can change history. I have been working with the law for many years, and I know for sure when you can't rely on the legal instruments, you can still rely on people. We get used to thinking through the categories of states and interstate organizations, but ordinary people have a much greater impact than they can even imagine. Ordinary people can do extraordinary things. I would never wish anyone to go through the war experience, because probably war is the most horrible thing which just can happen in the human life. But these dramatic times provide us an opportunity to express the best in us, to be courageous, to fight for freedom, to make a difficult but right choices, to take burden of responsibility, and to help each other. Because only when we help each other, only in that moment we are acutely aware what does it mean to be human. And I'm here to say that despite of everything, the story of Ukraine, it's a life-affirming story, because the dramatic times, they raise hope. Because when freedom is denied, it's become powerfully break out through every concrete individuals. And I'm here to say that in different countries worldwide, in the same second which we are here, many people are fighting for freedom and human dignity. Sometimes this fight may seem to be senseless because they are facing with enormous opposing power. However, the history of humankind convincingly proves that we shouldn't give up. Even when we have no tools, our own words and our own position always remain. Eventually, it's not so little. And let me finish and once again repeat the words of Desmond Tutu. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of oppressor. We are fighting for freedom, which have no limitation in national borders, as well as human solidarity. Our future is unclear, but not pre-written. It means that we still have a chance to fight for a peaceful, democratic future, which we want for ourselves and for our children. Thank you.
I really wish to thank everyone for the careful attention being given to the proceedings. Thank you very much. We definitely need moments like this to reflect and to locate the reset button jointly together. So thank you for your attentive ears to the discussions. We're coming closer to wrapping up the program, but we're not going to do so without acknowledging what Alexandra spoke about. The idea that we must always strive for our peace against authoritarian regimes. And I heard you twice, Madam, when you said, we need to give people back their names. A round of applause, Alexandra. A lawyer, a leader, a champion of human rights and youth education. To help us into the themes of bearing witness, truth, and justice, we have Yusra El-Bagir, from the African correspondent for Sky News, to lead a fireside chat with Maria Ressa and Alexandra Matvilchuk. Please join me in welcoming Yusra to the stage. A big round of applause.
Thanks for spending this beautiful summer evening in Cape Town with us. I think it says a lot that you're indoors right now, so we appreciate it. What a moment. It really feels like a huge moment. 30 years since South Africans voted for freedom, for a democracy fashioned in their image. 40 years since the Archbishop won the Nobel Peace Prize. And now I'm sharing the stage with two incredible women who've won the Nobel Peace Prize for the work they've done in their own home countries. And it's just an inspiration, so please, another round of applause. I would really love to kind of speak about this point, working in your home country, and how that work resonates and how universal that is. And just to start, I'd like to speak about my own country just for a moment, Sudan, and the war in Sudan that's displaced over 13 million people, including my own parents, my neighbors, my friends. It's a fight for humanity at this point. I think it's always been that way, but it's definitely escalated. And we've spoken today about revolution, and we've spoken about that fight every day for peace, and the irony of having to fight for peace. And it feels as though we are hurtling very quickly towards a place of no return. It's very dark, but it's important to face the truth, as ugly as it is, and I think that's really what you both do very well and very graciously. So I'd love to kind of start with that. So Maria, you talk about drawing the line, holding the line, and the Archbishop talks about social harmony being the greatest good. What about those lines drawn between us, the division sown and especially kind of harvested by big tech, by Facebook, by now Instagram, Twitter, all of these spaces that are meant to connect us, but are actually being used to divide us?
I think the times 40 years ago, right, no matter how difficult it was, if you get people in a room together, you can still find the common humanity. The problem now is if we are in the same room together, but we're on our devices, right, you have a personalized reality. Bearing witness means different things today, unfortunately for us, and I'm so worried about the next generation because personalization, which is big tech's foundation, means that each one of us can get what we want, right? In fact, that's the goal, so that you keep scrolling, you're going to be fed what you want. You looked for sneakers. Oh, you're going to get sneakers for the next 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. That was like 2014, 2015. Today, you click it, and all of a sudden, you have your version of reality. Polarization comes from an algorithm it's a growth algorithm for all social media platforms. The Friends of Friends algorithm. They feed us friends of friends, and A/B testing has shown that we're more prone to grow our network, which means the platform grows, which means engagement grows, which means they make hundreds of billions of dollars a year. Right? So, sorry, it's so long.
No, keep going.
The problem we have to face is to imagine that if we each have our personalized reality, that how are we going to find, how can we be in the same room together? How can we bear witness and convince each other that we are actually seeing the same thing and that we need to act in the same direction? How can civil society act if you can't agree on the facts? If I were to say 1 million times on social media, I'll pound it, information operations, we're having this gathering in Manila. And then you say 20 times, no, we're here in Cape Town. Doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong. I'm going to win because I said it 1 million times. When facts are debatable, it's a whole different thing. And then I'll pick up something that Alexandra mentioned, and it's worth saying that we've been talking about information because, I became a journalist because information is power. That we know. That power is now corrupted. The public information ecosystem has turned the incentive structure upside down. But that same technology, large language models, the same technology is being used in warfare. In 2018, you had 20,000 people walk out of Google because of military contracts, right? They were against it. So something like, if you've heard of Project Lavender, that same marketing and advertising technology is now used to program targets in drones. Except it's not 100% accurate. In fact, it's wrong a lot of times because it's a probabilistic machine. So when you use it to target people in Ukraine or in Gaza, if you kill the wrong person, who would know? If you drop a bomb on the wrong family, who would know? Sorry, not to be so bleak, but it is a bleak time, right?
It's a bleak time, unfortunately. But I think just even speaking about how disconnected, the apathy that is driving the violence, but also driving the complicity and the silence, right?
Correct.
That people are just watching things happen and are now desensitized.
Normalized.
Normalized.
Violence is normalized.
Exactly. And also online violence, normalizing real life violence. Alexandra, the three of us kind of spent the day being shocked by the parallels of what we're all kind of going through in our countries, what our families are going through. I wanted to speak to you about Ukraine because I find that it is heavily politicized. It's made into quite a geopolitical war between the East and the West, and communism versus capitalism. But having been on the ground in Kyiv, the ground experience is no different to Sudan or Palestine or any of the places where people are facing a fight against their existence. They're being bombarded just because they're there. And the greed in that and the land grab in that. How has your work, being so close to those horrific war crimes, how has that impacted your kind of view on humanity?
The truth is that I still can't find the proper words to describe what does it mean to live during the large-scale war. Because everything which we called normal life was ruined in one moment. A possibility to hug your beloved ones, to have family dinners, to meet with friends and colleagues in cafe, everything was disappeared and crushed. But what I want to tell that people in Ukraine being killed not just by Russian rockets and bombs, but also by Russian narratives that we are not exist, which is highly distributed through the artificially created informational system in different countries. Putin openly says there is no Ukrainian nation, there is no Ukrainian language, there is no Ukrainian culture, that we are the same people as Russians, that we are not exist. For 10 years, I have been documenting how these words converted in horrible practice. When Russian troops physically exterminate active people, local elite on the ground, mayors, journalists, priests, children writers, environmentalists, musicians, teachers, any active people of community, how they banned Ukrainian language and culture, how they robbed and destroyed Ukrainian cultural heritage, and how they took Ukrainian children to Russia. Probably you heard that International Criminal Court issued arrest warrant against Putin and his child commissioner Maria Lvova-Belova for this crime. And now we can say that Putin is the biggest child kidnapper in the world. And this is not political statement. It's fact which based on legal document of International Criminal Court. But what I want to emphasize, that when they took dozens of thousands Ukrainian children to Russia, they put them in Russian re-education camps. They told Ukrainian children, they're not Ukrainian children, they're Russian children, that their parents refused from them, and they will be supposed to adopt it by Russian families who will bring them up as Russians. After this, how the world can ask us to stop fighting? We have no other choice. If we stop fighting, it will be no more us.
Alexandra, I loved when you gave your Nobel Peace Prize lecture, you did it in Ukrainian, and the fact that that is in itself an act of resistance says so much. To not end on a very bleak and morbid note, I wanted to, we were at the exhibition today and we just saw the Arch laughing and his joy and his vibrancy. And I just wanted to ask you guys, in the face of this tireless fight and the commitment, the choice, the stance that you take, how do you keep going? What is the drive? It's quite existential, but I think necessary. What's the drive to keep marching on in the face of growing hate, especially in those really difficult moments where it just feels almost pointless? And they can happen.
I mean, we don't have a choice, right? And actually, Alexandra said this. This is what let me put it in my words, and I won't go. Hope comes from action, right? we have a chance to make it better. The pattern and the trend is really clear. We're falling off a cliff globally, but we can still pull back. But we need to act now.
Let me share with you my personal story. I mentioned in my speech that 10 years ago it was Revolution of Dignity. And I created civil initiative Euromaidan SOS during this revolution as a response of brutal dispersal of peaceful student demonstration. We united several thousands of people. We worked 24 hours per day, and every day, hundreds and hundreds of people who were beaten, arrested, tortured, accused in fabricated criminal case passed through our care. It was a very difficult time because we faced with entire state machine. The criminal groups cooperated with prosecutors. Prosecutors cooperated with courts. The former president, security service, former government, majority of parliament were against people, were against peaceful protests. They want to liquidate it, even physically. And it was a time when it was so easy to say, but what we can do when everything against us? And it was a risk that people start to feel this learned helplessness. And in order to overcome this risk, Ukrainian artists make a series of beautiful posters. And one of these posters is poster of a drop with a title, "We are drop in the ocean." It was widely distributed through social networks. People make graffiti. They printed it and put in their homes. We are drop in the ocean, which means, yes, we are human beings. We are not gods. But together we are ocean, and together we can change the history.
I'd like to just say that even though for you it feels like there's no choice, you guys are based in your home countries in spite of the arrest warrants that are still active. And in spite of what's happening in Ukraine, as we speak, the missiles coming in, the nuclear capacity missiles coming in from Russia. So I think the point needs to be made that you could turn away, that you could leave it, but you don't. And that's what we're trying to share, that there is no way forward if we're not all seeing that there's only one path forward, and that is together. One last thing. As a journalist, I often find myself fighting for people's attention. Please care about Sudan. Please care about the DRC. Please care about this place and that place. And there's a lot of apathy. What do you say to young people who feel that jadedness, the desensitization of the violence and the cruelty we're seeing around us?
Actually, this is one of my greatest fears, right? Because if you look, and I'm going to use Gen Z, right? We just finished a 3-year deep dive into big data in the United States. 18 to 34 years old, they get their information from social media. 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10, right? So 60%. And you don't get news from social media. 2018 MIT study said that lies spread 6 times faster on social media. And so take a look at the election results in the US, the generation gap that has happened, and that is happening all around the world. So how do we raise the next generation? How will the next generation find meaning when there is a flattening of meaning, when words are getting robbed, right? When empathy is getting killed? I mean, there's other stuff that you have to look at. Globally, the US Secretary Surgeon General, for the first time in May 2023, said that not only are teenagers, have increased levels of ADHD, of sleeplessness, of suicide. Young women increase levels of eating disorders, but that there's an epidemic of loneliness. that epidemic of loneliness, that isolation, that's what we need to fight. So, oh my gosh, I didn't answer your question.
No, you did. You did.
So we gotta fight it, right? But I feel like Cassandra and Sisyphus combined, because I've been saying this since 2016, we have to do it now.
Probably first I will say to the youth, sorry. Sorry that we left such world, unrepaired world, and so much problems for you as your parents. We are really sorry for that. And second, I will say that all your efforts matter. All your efforts matter. Because sometimes when you face with enormous challenge, you can feel this learned helplessness because it's a huge challenge and your efforts are very modest because you're a human being. But the truth is that all efforts matter. And yes, probably with my individual efforts, I will not overcome this challenge. But without my individual efforts, nothing will be changed. Because hope, it's not a confidence that everything will be fine, but this is a deep understanding that everything which we are doing have meaning.
Thank you so much to both of you for coming all the way, and thank you to the Tutu Legacy Foundation for bringing us all together. Thank you for coming. Please, a huge round of applause for Maria Ressa, Alexander Matsutuk.
What a brilliant moment. Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you very much to those that dared to do it, and we live to hear all the stories about what they continue to do. Thank you for that incredibly facilitated panel. You know, earlier on when the team was talking about this gathering, I remember it was Ntombentle who said, this is an intergenerational get-together. The people in the room are interested in hearing Yasra Elbagi speak because they follow her work. And that a lot of us are surprised that young people are following these kind of conversations. Congratulations to all the work that you do. A round of applause again, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, it is a moment of hope to realize that we can be together in spirit like this. Our next speaker is Abigail Noko. She's the regional representative of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. She will share insights on the importance of standing for human rights as we seek to bear witness. Please give her a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And also to mention that we are managing time very tightly. We did say that around this time we will be at this point of the program, which is towards the end. And of course, Abigail is bringing the words of wisdom at this hour.
Hey, Mr. Soldier Man, tomorrow is the day you go to.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Mama Leah, who's online, and the Tutu family, as well as the CEO and board members, and all of you for being here. It's difficult to find the words after such an amazing evening, but suffice to say that the United Nations family in South Africa, as well as the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, is deeply honored to be here at this annual lecture that speaks to the reverence of the late Archbishop. I'd like to also say thank you to the two Nobel laureates, our facilitator and moderator, to the artists and performers for their example and the extraordinary work they have done in pursuit of truth, justice, and human rights. I think it's fair to say that after this evening, we all leave here different people. I leave with 3 important impressions. The first is the power of the art and storytelling. Through journalism, poetry, the law, singing, and music, each one of these are powerful mediums for bearing witness. We know that each one of us individually can bear witness. The late Archbishop Tutu taught us this, to stand with others in the sacred space for their experience, to stand with others so that they are not alone and not unseen, and in doing so, practicing Ubuntu. The second is to see hope, dignity, and humanity as an energizer. The energizer that we need to get up and keep going. We must breathe in this energizer called hope, dignity, and humanity, and exhale it daily, especially in moments of despair and disillusionment. And the third is what the Arch himself has said: choose to be on the winning side. Indeed, each one of us makes choices on a daily basis. We can choose to be on the winning side. I choose to stand for human rights. Will you? And if so, join the movement and demand our rights, our future, right now. Thank you.
There are 2 faces, there are 2 ladies, very powerful, who I think throughout the proceedings today have either been biting a cheek or cringing a little because as they wade like comfortable ducks over the water, they know the hard work that goes behind this and what should not go wrong. I'd like to invite them to come to the stage right now to express their gratitude for tonight's incredible event. It gives me great pleasure to invite Janet Jobson, the CEO of the Tutu Legacy Foundation, and Ntombendle Shezi, Advocacy and Communications Lead, to the stage.
While she's coming up, I'd like to make a very special shout out to Ntombendle. She is the dreamer, curator, project manager, organizer-in-chief of this incredible evening. And so I'd love all of us to give her a particularly... We've had such an incredible evening, and I'm so grateful to our speakers for having shared the evening with us. Yusra, you have really shown us the power of listening in and being able to pull out wisdom from the people around you. Thank you so much for your time with us tonight. Maria, Alexandra, thank you for traveling so far to be with us, and thank you so much for the inspiring messages that you've left us with. I know that this is bleak times, but there is something so powerful in the example of particularly women standing up and taking on the fight and really taking it as a collective of humanity. Thank you so much for your time this evening. It's also a great pleasure to thank all of the incredible sponsors that have supported us to be able to pull off something like this, particularly the Heinrich Böll Stiftung Foundation, our friends from the United Nations, both the United Nations South Africa in general, as well as in particular the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights, to Investec, to the British Council, the Norwegian Embassy, to Hazendal, the Western, Studio H, Narrative, Then, and Eastern Acoustics. We absolutely could not do this evening without you. Thank you so much for your contribution to bringing this evening to life. The work that we're able to do as a foundation relies on the generosity of individuals and foundations and corporates around the world. And so if you feel inspired to contribute to the legacy of Desmond Tutu, please do notice a small QR code on the back of your program. We really are trying to build a community around the Tutu legacy, a community of people that are contributing, that are living out his values, that are taking his example into the future. Thank you so much for joining us here this evening. It's one way in which we can build the solidarity, the hope, the love that we hope to inspire in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. For those who've followed us for the last kind of 14 lectures, you would notice that the format of the lectures has changed quite a bit. These last 2 years, we've been really interested in thinking about how do we bring people together from different contexts. So with our theme of bearing witness, we thought about not just bearing witness to the hopelessness we sometimes see in the world, but also who are the people who are helping us to bear witness to joy and resilience and hope. And we thought about who has been doing that with us through the 30 years of democracy. And with that, Zoe made so much sense in relation to being the voice of our generation. Dan Ferris was also just really incredible in relation to being able to capture and remind us of where we come from. And Andile Nana as a brilliant educator and a very dedicated sort of like cultural activist made sense to all of us to help us think about how bearing witness through art is also a mode of bearing witness through witnessing resilience and joy. So please do give a round of applause to all our brilliant artists who were with us tonight. I'd also love to say a huge thank you to John Allen, Barbara Mantata, and Cedric Nunn, who spent time with us really helping us think about the moment when the Arch won the Nobel Prize, but also these ideas of how bearing witness is something that we need to keep in our memory. So talking to our elders is something we appreciate so much at the foundation. And so I really want to thank all of them and all of the Arch's former collaborators who are still really with us today, and I see a few of them in the audience today. So thank you to everyone. A big thank you as well to the Tutu family. We appreciate you being here, and a real big thank you to Mama Leah. We're so lucky to have her still with us as our founding mother, so we always just think about what does it also mean to have had her by the side of the Arch, bearing witness amongst him. Thank you as well to the Tutu team. It took a lot to bring this together, and you probably have seen our team running around, or not, because they're also like in the background. So a huge thank you to the team. Please do come visit us at the foundation. They're lovely people, and we would love to have you to see most of our work, not just through what you've seen today, but on the ground at the foundation. So thank you to Team Tutu. Okay. And finally, please help me say thank you to Brenda Sisani, the Brenda Sisani, who's been a friend of the foundation for such a long time. So thank you so much, Brenda. Yeah. And thank you so much to Fortune and Lizeka for also being here to hold space with Brenda for us tonight. So that ends our show for tonight, and we're so excited to have Andile and Nana, but Brenda's going to come and do her job and introduce Andile for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. After attending last year's lecture, I actually realized and heard, clarity of vision from the CEO. And of course, Ntombentle, as somebody that I've also enjoyed working with over the years, just seeing her ability to position and bring us a world stage on our doorstep with the kind of speakers that we've had. And for us to imagine that we are not by ourselves, we are talking about universal issues. Congratulations on this incredible one. Andile Yanana is an educator. He's an incredible musician and pianist, and he has a special place for education. He believes that the true purpose of arts education is not necessarily to create more professional dancers or artists, but it is to create more complete human beings who are critical thinkers, who have curious minds, and who can lead productive lives. He's joining us on stage. He's put together an incredible group of musicians. He flew in all the way from Durban, where he teaches, and put together an array of musicians from this part of the world. And together they're going to present the closing act. Please give them a round of applause.
Madagascar, Zimbabwe, Senegal, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Cameroon, Angola, Mauritius, Benin, Ethiopia, Swaziland, DRC, Tunisia, Namibia, DRC.
Sanibonani. Molweni. We're going to play a song called Ensemble Room. Ensemble Room is a tune I composed in one of the rooms I work with young people with at Kamalake College in Port Shepstone. I work at the TVET College. I teach music over there. So this is one of the songs that I composed inspired by my daily interaction with young people. It's a situation where I see them for 18 months. I build, bonds with them. I hear the stories, and then they disappear. They go to look for in-service training. It's been happening for the past 10 years. So it's one of those songs. It's one of those songs that have so much feeling of calm, feeling of turmoil, feeling of anxiety. But there's always this thing that, I don't know, that says, we will overcome, we will get there, we will forge ahead. Thank you. This one is for my father, my late father, who passed away 2 years ago. It's a song that I composed a couple of weeks after I bid farewell to him. He's the man that introduced me to jazz. He's the man that told me about his schooling at St. Peter's with Trevor Huddleston. He was telling me about Hugh Masekela. He was telling me about Gwangwa. These are the people that he was at school with. I was able to take him back there after so many years to just go and see the place, but by then he couldn't see. So he just got out to the building and then he was just touching the walls, and all sorts of memories came pouring from him. This was something that I wrote for him. It's called Sakake. Here's a little song. I know it was not part of what we were going to do. It's a song for Zim. Zim is a mentor that I had that took me all over the world. Whenever I'm in stages like this, and occasions like these, I think of him. He used to play this song on the piccolo. And whenever there's a kid in the audience, he would just say, I'm focusing on the kid and I'm playing this song for them. And he knows that they're going to respond the way he wanted them to respond with that piccolo of his. The song is called Zim's Tune. Steven Soguyeva on the trombone. Shahima Clayton on the violin. On the drums, Team Fortis.
Ladies and gentlemen, Andile Yenana, composer, pianist, educator with a penchant for swinging. And of course, 3 award-winning albums, under his belt, and 1 that is coming out very soon. So please make a date with his work. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining us tonight to celebrate the legacies of Archbishop Tutu and Mama Leah, and to recommit ourselves to the ideals they championed. As you leave, let the spirit of peace and justice accompany you. Good night, and may Tutu guide us forward.
Neria, wo, uzawore moyo kanderia, Maria newe, uzawore moyo kanderia, Maria newe, Maria newe kanderia, Maria newe, kuvirwa ne murumenda, zinona moyo we kushinga. Uzawore moyo kanderia, Maria newe, uzawore moyo kanderia, Maria newe, Maria newe kanderia, Maria newe. Size mhlabeni, alusakethi nantandane. Tankhali izinyembezi